Let's talk worm psychology. So I wanted to show you something. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about things, and I just kind of wanted to notice, one of the things people that use the buckets, they talk about the worms going in a counterclockwise fashion. And they say, oh, this is evidence of electroculture because the earth, its energy rotates in a counterclockwise fashion. All the ions and everything coming from the earth, and the energy coming from the earth. I don't believe it. In fact, I've seen worms go the other way, and what's really happening, and I've had a number of worm channels that I watched, and you may be wondering what is all this stuff growing in here. Because soil compacts, and the more these worms work this, well, it's not soil, but this bed, the more they work it, the more it gets compacted. And so I have put throughout this entire worm bed a bunch of bird seed and let it sprout. And the reason for this is to kind of open up areas for worms to get into. So this is a way to fight the compaction, and then when they die, well, you got plenty of food for the worms too. So as I was getting back to, people were like, well, these worms here, that they're going counterclockwise. This is evidence of electroculture. No, it's not. Because this one right here, this long little booger right here, not the red one, but the one under him, it is traveling clockwise. They will travel however they wish. And people that have the roundworm beds, they say, oh, they're following the natural currents of the earth. No, they're not. They're being worms. And like I was about to say, a lot of the worm bed channels, they will say that they see worms that are around the corners. But why is that? Worms are like any other animal. You can see in here, they're in this food that I laid out. So there's some right there. There's right in the center. So this had nothing to do with electroculture. This is just that what people trying to make sense out of something they don't understand. So these are some juveniles right here. This one right here is about to be a breeder. He's not quite old enough yet. So it doesn't have a clitellum. It's starting to get a clitellum, but this is basically what you would call a teenager. Nice little worm, I think. They're eating all this food that I put in here for them. But worms are animals. And the only animals on this earth that is weird is us. We're the weirdos. And I was going to show you a breeder, by the way, so you can see a one with a clitellum. See that little egg sac right there? That big bulbous area on or collar, that is the clitellum. That lets you know this is an adult. Again, not a bad one. I'll put it back right side up because it doesn't like that. Alright, so humans, we will go in one area and we will eat up everything that area produces. We will eat everything off of a plant before we go to another plant. So if a tomato has, dozens and dozens and dozens of red tomatoes, we will pick every red tomato off of it. Animals are different. They will go to a tomato plant, eat one tomato, and then they'll go to another plant a few yards over. There's worms all in this bucket here. Trying not to disturb them too much, but trying to fluff it up too. So anyway, they will go and they will eat a little bit at a time. And even deer, I like to hunt for deer. I like to hunt for squirrels. You know, a deer will, let's say that this is 100 acres. All right, a deer will eat right here, go over a little bit, eat here, go over a little bit, eat here, and they just keep moving around. So in the course of maybe an hour or so, you get them covering several acres that they have eaten. Especially bucks. Bucks are bad about that. A doe will go a few yards, eat a little bit, a few yards, eat a little bit. A buck will eat a bit and go 15-20 yards almost in a straight line and then eat. And then he'll go another 15-20 yards and then eat. And that's the way they behave. All animals do this. Virtually no animal says, oh, here's a smorgasbord, let's just tear it all up. That's not what happens. But humans, we do that, and we expect our animals to do that. And so we humans put animals in conditions that they're not designed to be in. These lovely worms right here were not designed to be in a worm bed. That is not what God intended them to be in. We put them there. And so what they do is they try to move as far away as they can in a given area and eat. And so you may have in a few acres several thousand worms, but these several thousand worms are, spread out. And what they do is they eat their way through, these are composting worms. Technically they're earthworms, but they're really not going through earth. They're going through like rotten leaves and things of that nature. And then you have earthworms, the true earthworms underneath them, and there's a little baby right there. Barely can tell the difference between it and one of those little seedlings growing. But anyway, they will spread out and eat a ton of stuff. And here's one right here that escaped. I just saw it. So they will escape. I don't know how it escaped, but it escaped. I don't know if I flicked it out or what, but it was right on top of the soil, so it had to be from me. Probably was on the lid when I popped it off. Anyway, so they will go across these leaves like these babies are doing. And then as they get older and they develop a clitellum, like this one right here, when they find another one of their species, they will mate and lay eggs. And wherever they leave their trail, bacteria and stuff's breaking down things. And so you have this whole ecosystem working together. The worms aren't doing all the work, and they're definitely not in their own filth. They're in rotting stuff, so it's still filthy to us, but to them, totally different. And yes, they're in the filth of others. That's just the nature of what they're designed to do. But it's nothing like what we have in a worm bed, where they're constantly in contact with each other like this, and that they're moving around. So the long and short of it is, why are they always on the edges? Has nothing to do with electroculture, none of that woo-woo crap. It has everything to do with the fact that they're animals, and animals are designed by God to not destroy the ecosystem, but to enhance it. And so they eat only what they need and move on. And a lot of times their moving on is not that they fill up, but they get a few bites and move on. The only time that we humans might do something like that is, for instance, when you're wanting a snack. You know, like there's a smilax vine I like to eat on. If I find a smilax vine, I'll eat the tips. I won't eat every one, I'll just eat a few bites of each. And then I'll keep walking along on the hiking trail. If I find some huckleberries or blueberries or whatever, I'll take a few bites and move on. That's the reason why worms that you find in nature are healthier than many worms people grow in worm beds. And the reason why is because people are not feeding their worms. They're thinking that everything a worm needs is in these leaves. These leaves or peat moss or whatever you're putting in there is not enough. They're eating all sorts of stuff that you never think about. That's the reason why I have to put in things like oats and cornmeal and flour and all that, and I have to put frozen vegetables, things of that nature, to keep giving them plenty of food and diversity, because they need it. They need a rich and diverse diet that they're not getting in the wild. I hope this helps answers some of the questions that many worm growers have, especially worm growers at home, because if you listen to some of these channels where people are growing them for profit, you know, they just, oh, I don't know why, or it's always interesting, or it's fun. They never say why things are happening this way. They've never investigated. They never looked into it. And so it's just like, oh, it's just part of worm behavior. No, well, yeah, it is worm behavior, but there's a specific reason. What we're doing is not natural to these animals. We are doing things contrary to what is in their DNA to do. And so I wanted to put that out there. This is farming. Anytime you do farming, you're going against nature. You have to realize that. You're going against what God intended the plants to do, and you're doing what you want the plants and animals to do. And you're doing it in a small scale, and you're making them run contrary to how they were designed. Or in some cases, we design them to be a certain way because the wild plants were not designed that way. So again, I hope this helps. If you have any questions, please put it in the comment section down below. And with that, I'll see you again next time. Bye.